Good morning, everyone. We're going to begin our public hearings, our department budget hearings for this morning. I'm John Quincy, Chair, and joined by Council Vice President Glidden. We're not going to need a formal quorum, and so we'll be joined as the morning begins with other council members, and other people will be flowing in and out. I did want to mention that Councilmember Goodman is unable to attend today. She's attending a funeral, so we wish her the best and our condolences for her friend. And then also Councilmember Gordon has got a previous appointment this morning, but he'll be here in the afternoon. So we have several. This is Public Safety Day. We have 911 that we'll be hearing from first, followed by a presentation from the Police Department, and then a budget presentation from Emergency Management Department. So I think we have about a half hour or so scheduled for you, Ms. Hunt, if you could. And if you could begin, that'd be great. If you could do it in less than that. Would anybody object? No, we're okay. So go ahead. Thank you, Ms. Hunt.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. I'm Heather Hunt, the Director of Emergency Communications for the City of Minneapolis, and I'm pleased to present the 911 2017 budget. And I guarantee I can do it in less than 30 minutes. Moving right into our presentation, department organization. It's very straightforward. I do want to call your attention to the additional position that we were granted for this year, the Training and Quality Assurance Specialist, adding depth to our training and quality assurance program. Our budget summary is as proposed from Finance and the Mayor. We have one-time change item that we have requested for protocol software training in the amount of $192,000. That is for the training of all of our 911 staff, all 80 of our operators and dispatchers, to learn our new 911 protocol software. And because it is such a large undertaking, it needs to be completed off duty. So staff cannot do this on duty at their normal time. So it requires a large expenditure of overtime. Again, this is a one-time proposal.
Ms. Hunt, is that $192,000? Is that anticipating the overtime as well as the consulting services for this, or is this a CARS request by chance that requires some hardware?
Now, this request is overtime only for staff to complete the training. And we do have CARS money for the purchase of the software, and I'll talk about that when we get to the CARS slide. Thank you. Our 911 core programs, of course, we are the link between the public and emergency response for the city. We answer 911 calls and dispatch police and fire responses. We provide emergency and non-emergency call answering. We are the alternate warning point for Hennepin County for the emergency siren system. We process and provide data requests from internal and external agencies and the public. We educate the public on 911 and how to use it. And we also provide an array of ancillary support services for our user agencies and other city departments. This is the breakdown of our general fund and grant budget. The non-general fund amount that you see there of $515,480 is our 911 surcharge revenue that we receive every year from the state, from the collection of your 911 surcharge on your phone bill. And there are strict rules for the expenditure of those funds by state statute. Our budget falls into the city goals and values of living well, equity, safety, health, vitality, connectedness, and growth, and a city that works, because public safety is a fundamental duty of government, and we are a public safety department. The protocol software training change item that I mentioned when we looked at the budget spreadsheet. Again, this is a system, it's software that will optimize the call taking process. It's a script, if you will, for our call takers. And it is an accredited program. It will ensure that all call takers receive the same level of service. The system will prompt the call takers to ask the correct questions in the correct order, making sure that nothing is missed and that all the critical information that is needed for a response is gathered. The system does require all users to complete the training and certification process. We are currently in final contract negotiations with the vendor. We had issued an RFP, and we're working with finance and IT right now to finalize that contract. And as I mentioned, because all staff needs to be trained and certified, it can't be accomplished during normal working hours. So overtime is needed, and that is the $192,000 to complete that initial training. Our service levels and activity measures for 911 are represented on this slide. You can see on the top left slide, the green line indicates total 911 calls received. You can see that if you look at quarter 3 2015 and quarter 3 2016, it's about the same number of 911 calls. The third quarter is typically our busiest time during the summer, and then it dips in first quarter and comes back up. So that's a typical curve that you would see in our 911 call volume. You can also see that since we implemented our new phone system in third quarter 2015, we have increased and improved our 911 answer times substantially and maintain above the national standard for 911 call answering.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Hunt. Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks. I just had a question. You might have talked about this at other budget hearings, and I just have forgotten. But can you just walk us through a little bit? How does it work if someone calls and they are speaking their primary language is some language other than English? How do your protocols work with assisting that caller, and how much extra time does it take to assist them should the 911 operator, of course, not be able to converse in that language? So currently, with our current system, we use a service called 911 AT&T Language Line. I think it's now called Language Line. And that is a contracted service provided free of charge to 911 centers by the State of Minnesota Department of Public Safety. They maintain the contract. So if we receive a call from a non-English speaking caller, we conference in on an 800 number with an interpreter from the language service. And that would be exactly the same with the protocol system. So I don't foresee But I guess
any...
my question was a little bit, how is that call? It's not so much about the protocol.
Okay.
It's about just how is that caller's service and the ability of the center to serve them then affected? I mean, I was just kind of curious because we haven't talked about this much here. I think we've talked about language a little bit more with 311. And I don't know like what percentage of your calls come in. That kind of, I guess, tells you a little bit of, I guess, of the reach and comfort of people who speak English as a second language or don't speak English at all to calling 911. And then, you know, do you keep track of what's the call time to resolve? And the other thing, I guess, is I don't know if the AT&T Language Line, if those are folks who are trained in 911 type call response, which is, of course, a skilled, what am I trying to say here? It's a special skill in terms of both language you use and kind of how you are able to talk through and get information in an efficient and quick way to get to the emergency.
Right. So how it works is when we're conferenced in with the interpreter, our operator guides the conversation. So we will tell the interpreter, ask the caller tell me exactly what happened, and so forth. And we would go through those questions guided by our operator. We do have statistics on the number of non-English speaking calls that we use Language Line for. Those are gathered and kept by the state and could be provided. There's no question that it does take longer when you obviously have a third party on the call and you're repeating everything that someone is saying. I don't have those statistics at the tip of my tongue right now, but it does take longer.
Yeah, I guess I would just say I don't need these so much for the budget process, but I think it would be great to see a little bit more refined analysis of kind of, just like we've been doing with 311, and again for a different purpose, but what's our reach to communities where English is not going to be the language they use when they call? Are we growing that reach? And then what does the service look like in response?
Yep, we'd be happy to work on that with you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Or not with me, but with the
Yes.
with the city.
With the city.
Not for me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The quarterly call volume is another thing that we keep an eye on. That's the bottom right-hand graph. And you can see that we have a lot of the purple number are outgoing calls. Those are calls that are business related that need to be made by our staff. And we're including this here because we don't just answer incoming calls. A part of our work in our business flow is also making outgoing calls, arranging for things, answering questions, calling people back, and performing those ancillary administrative services for our users. The blue, of course, is the answered calls. The green is abandoned calls. Abandoned calls are an issue for 911. This is where the callers will call and hang up either because they've made a mistake and didn't mean to call 911 or some other reason. And then the orange is callbacks. That's the number of times we call back an abandoned call. And it's different from the abandoned calls because many abandoned calls can't be called back because their phones are not capable of receiving incoming calls. They're outgoing calls only. In the top left here, total police and fire dispatch incidents. This captures the volume of work that we do around police and fire dispatching. As you can see, the majority of our work is around police dispatching and managing police incidents, and fire is pretty consistently quite a smaller number. The quality assurance program measures the quality of the call taking that's occurring when we're answering 911 calls and processing them. And you can see that we have a pretty steady number. The percentage is based on a series of criteria that calls are reviewed against, and then a percentage is produced. When we move to our new protocol system, that includes a very, very robust quality assurance module, and we're going to see something a lot different than this. This is our Excel spreadsheet work that we do to try to capture this data. So we do have a CARS request. This is for $194,665. It's to renovate the 911 backup EOC and training facility. Those of you who were here when we had the bridge collapse may remember the environment that we had to work in our EOC down in B911 in the basement. Of course, we have built the EOTF now. But this facility is still a backup facility as well as a place for elected officials and others to come if getting to the EOTF is not practical. It also serves as our training facility, and it's the backup facility for some of our user agencies. We also anticipate that it will be a command center for the Super Bowl in 2018, one of many command centers that the city will have. So we have 1980s furniture and workstations in that facility, and it's time to upgrade that. We are proposing to put in a large wall monitor system integrated with video conferencing. Instead of the old fold-up tables right now, we would like to put in modern powered workstations and tables similar to what is up at the EOTF, so that you can adapt the room for different purposes, including our training. And we need ergonomic seating. We have old conference chairs in there that are not ergonomic. And that is the conclusion of my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Good. Thank you very much, Ms. Hunt. And thanks to all of the staff in 911 for all their services. I wondered if you could take a moment. I know this is kind of perhaps catching you off guard, but the last two budgets, we've put in some investments, and now we're seeing some of those payoffs, especially in the new systems. And can you just talk about how those investments have been incorporated and how those systems have performed for you?
I certainly can. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have made investments in both human resources and in technology. And the human resources, we have been able to add FTE to our existing contingent. Those people have been hired and trained. We also have completed or near to completed our cross-training program, where we are combining the two job classes of 911 operator and 911 dispatcher so that all staff can do all the jobs in the center interchangeably. We are on track to complete that in November. We have one staff person remaining to take the training. And that flexibility, along with the addition of the additional FTE, I do believe has allowed us to exceed our national standards in 911 call answering, along with providing some flexibility, job flexibility for staff, which I think has been a positive impact on the culture of the department. Our 911 technology investments, our shared hosted phone system that we share with Hennepin County, Edina, Alina EMS, and Hennepin EMS, and the city of, the city of Edina, has given us modern 911 IP-based technology so that we can more flexibly answer 911 calls. It also has given us a state-of-the-art data system that allows us now to more accurately measure our performance. In past years, we were pretty much doing back-of-the-envelope math to arrive at our measures, and now we do have a system that is very accurate, allows us to do a lot of things, allows us to implement more accountability into the work that's being done, and give us more accurate performance measures.
Good. Thank you very much, and congratulations for what you've accomplished so far, and we're very much looking forward to what our investments are going to be able to perform next year for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council members? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. We'll allow for some transition time. I don't know if Mr. Cronk, did you know if the police department is available? Okay. Mr. Lane, how long would you need by your... Would you be willing to go now? Okay. Let me adjust the schedule if that's okay with everyone. Since Mr. Lane is here and he's had a relatively brief presentation, and we still have 8 minutes before the scheduled MPD time. And so we may be able to allow a little more conversation for the police department. So if Mr. Lane, if you could carry us through the Emergency Management Center operations budget hearing, that would be great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You can be able to switch that computer, okay? I'll, of course, note we've also been joined this morning by Councilmember Yang, who's the chair of the Public Safety Civil Rights Committee for the city, and Councilmember Lisa Bender.
Is this under presentation materials?
Do you have a flash drive?
My staff are coming to join me at the end of the
Yeah.
police presentation, so she has that. If it's not loaded up here, I can either do it verbally or we can wait. Either whatever you want to do. I have the slides here. We can, whatever you guys want to do.
If it's available there, otherwise we can project them on the with the opaque projector.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work very well.
Yeah. We thought we were being clever, Mr. Lane. Maybe that's not working out.
I'm willing to give it a shot, Mr. Chair. Thank you. While we're bringing it up, maybe I could just give you my verbal presentation that we can walk through the slide deck because it's not very extensive. So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, if I may, or should I proceed?
Sure.
Okay.
If you'd like,
I'll pull up my own notes here and we'll walk through. So, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Barrett Lane. I'm the Director of the Office of Emergency Management, and I'm here to brief you on the Mayor's 2017 recommended budget for the Office of Emergency Management. As you know, and we'll walk through the slides here in just a moment, but bottom line up front, we're not asking for any additional general fund dollars for the office. We are looking only for the increased costs that finance has assigned us to move the current service level forward into next year. We do have a CARS request in for $250,000 to finish the build out of the outdoor warning siren system. So those are really the two moving parts that we have here. And thank you very much. We do have the presentation up. So let me just walk you through the slide deck then. Here's our current organization. We're organized under Emergency Management Incident Command System structure. That allows us to switch very quickly from day-to-day operations to emergency operations in the event that we have to. So you can see how the work is divided up here between the four traditional sections within that organization. Here are the numbers. Last year we had about $813,000. We're going up to $1.2 million this year. That includes the $250,000 CARS request. And then the balance, the swing there, about $140,000 is the increased costs that have been assigned by finance to our department. So movement within the costs allocated out to our department. Primarily in that we're moving our emergency cash warehouse from a space that CPED is holding for redevelopment right now to another space, and the cost of that is simply going up. So we're working with Property Services has found us a new space. This equipment cache serves special needs sheltering. So we have bariatric cots, we have special needs mobility transport equipment, we have regular cots, sheltering equipment and whatnot that's available both for us but for regional and national deployment. So that's in a warehouse right now, and since that warehouse is going to be released for redevelopment, Property Services has worked with us to find a new spot. So that's what's in that $140,000 swing there between last year and this year in the general fund. From a core program standpoint, we're in the resilience business. Our vision is to have a resilient City of Minneapolis organization serving the resilient City of Minneapolis community. You can see that we work in four main mission areas: mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Without going through this in detail, you can see some of the activities that are associated with each of those mission areas. In addition, we have an overhead function that provides us with financial support, grant management support, and the like. The way we work this is we're continuing to work the strategic plan adopted in 2013, which calls for being evaluated for accreditation at the end of 2018. So each year we build out the capabilities that are necessary to make that happen. We evaluate them, put them in production, and move forward to the next year. So that's how we measure and manage our work. Here, once again, you can see the numbers as well as the goals and values that we're connected with. From a performance measurement standpoint, we're, of course, aligned with the overall city coordinator team, measuring performance around collaborative, transformative, and results-driven axes. How that works out within our department is, as I mentioned, basically making sure that we comply with organizational mandates, that we're working against that accreditation process, And you can see a number of the projects that we have in place this year that are driving us toward that end. So it's really, we're continuing to build out according to the plan that we've been working on for the last 3 or 4 years. That is the operational side of the house. Our CARS request is $250,000 to finish the build out of the outdoor warning siren system. You may recall a couple of years ago, we finished the build out and refresh of that system in the neighborhood areas. We now have a difference of service level between the downtown area and the neighborhoods. We want to remedy that, and this program is designed to do exactly that. It was designed to be a 2-phase program simply because the downtown area is more complex in terms of its sound environment. We needed to have a different solution to that. Working very closely with property services, we have a solution for that, and we'll be matching up that $250,000 from CARS with $200,000 in grant money that we have available. So that's already online. And that, Mr. Chair, as promised, was quick and so I'm happy to answer any questions. So.
Thank you very much. I had a quick question. There's a few others that we'll get to. I just want to make sure, are you fully staffed at this point?
We have 2 hires being made right now. We would have 1 open spot then, but we're on a good track to being staffed under that org chart, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. We've also been joined by Councilmember Palmisano and Council President Johnson. We'll begin with Vice President Glidden's question, and then the Council President has a question.
Thanks. This is more like one of these inner workings kind of questions, but I'll just say I noted when you were describing what accounted for the jump in your overall budget, which really doesn't amount to different levels of service so much, but just different things happening. If we could get a little bit more, maybe this is more from finance, the amount that is now being assigned to your department to the finance assigned costs. It just seemed like kind of a bigger jump just in proportion with your budget.
Right.
And I was curious if that was some readjusting that happened in the finance department to how you allocate costs, or something that had been missed before that should have been allocated as to costs, or just want to know if we could get a little 2 cents, because it's an important part of understanding how the budget works. I know the departments themselves kind of often try to just make sure they're understanding why is this working this way. And I think it would be helpful for us to hear a little 2 cents on that.
My understanding, having asked exactly the same questions, most of that driver comes from the costs associated with the new rent. The rent is just substantially higher than it was before. And
the new what? Say that again.
The warehouse rent.
The rent.
So we're renting this
Thank
warehouse
you.
for this, and it's just a bigger chunk. So in the past, this was a CPED building. We had to go out into the marketplace and actually rent space. We're co-located with a reg services facility, so there's some efficiencies there, but it's just a different rent basis.
Okay.
That's
thank
my
you.
understanding of the primary driver, and I've
That's
certainly deferred
helpful
to.
to hear. Ms. Green.
Chair Quincy, Councilmember Glidden, that's an accurate statement.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Good.
Thank you.
Council President Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Lane, I know we had a action in public safety a while ago about a contract with someone who's in Texas for management of the grant process. Is that, I'm trying to think. It was a contract, and it was someone with particular expertise. And I'm just looking at your boxes, your organizational chart. Isn't there the capacity within those people to be able to manage that grant process rather than having to send it off to Texas? That was just my question. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, Council President, yes. I mean, in fact, the reason that we retained this person is to make sure that we had a hard handoff to Danielle Williams, who is our new Finance and Admin Section Chief. We wanted to keep Jill Finney's capabilities online so that we didn't have a big lurch, because Danielle had to step in and pick up a big job that includes a lot of other stuff other than just running the grants. So we made the decision to keep Jill online for a while here so that we can train in Danielle so that she can ultimately pick this up and go. That's correct. And Stillwater LLC knows that this is probably the last extension we're going to get here. So the idea was just to make sure we had a smooth transition. Yes.
Good. Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Lane, in the Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management Committee, just this past week, we are accepting a grant from the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, Homeland Security, and Emergency Management Division for about $977,000. And is that included in your presentation or your budget too?
If you go back through the presentation and go to one of the two slides that has the numbers on it, you'll see a representation there of around $1 million in non-general fund revenues. So we get that grant for about 990 plus or minus, plus we have another $30,000 grant, and finance has generally just rounded it to about $1 million because that's kind of a self-contained system. But yes, that's accounted for in that box under current funding.
Thank you.
Good. Mr. Lane, I don't see any other questions, so I thank you very much for your willingness to jump up in line.
Not a problem.
And,
thank you, sir. And thank you all.
The less we see of you, I think the better for the city. No emergencies
I
here.
can't argue with that, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
We'll take that as a good sign.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. We'll allow for a little transition time as we begin the police department's presentation. See Ms. McPherson here and Chief Hartzell. Welcome.
Yeah. It's a two-person operation here.
Yeah.
We are ready whenever you are.
At your, whenever
right.
you're ready, begin. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. Everybody knows me, so we don't need an introduction, right?
The public may not.
The public may not. Boy, if they don't know me, I'm doing something wrong.
Well, you're not wearing
It's
that.
always an opportunity.
Good morning, Chief Janae Hartel, and I have Robin McPherson with me, the technical expert of the budget. So first page we have up here is our org chart. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. We've made some minor adjustments through the past couple of years. But other than that, everything remains relatively the same. Just as we begin, our 2017 general fund target budget is 2.8% higher than the 2016 budget, and that's primarily due to payroll costs. Internal service charges were flat year over year. The MPD has received approximately $1.9 million in grant awards in 2016, and that began with the body camera equipment award at the end of last year.
Right.
Many of these are going to carry over into 2017. Other increases in our non-general funds were primarily due to increased revenues for security services at U.S. Bank Stadium, offset by increased expenses. Both are offset in partial decrease in COPS grant funding as our COPS grant comes to an end. And then while we go into more detail in the next few minutes, most of the new funding relates to our increased sworn staffing, expanding our community service officer program, and additions to the capital asset requests. And those are on page 4. So as you can see, the change request, we've had significant initiatives this last year as we transformed the MPD. We had crisis intervention training, procedural justice, and de-escalation training. Using the League of Minnesota Cities online training, we got better training with lower payroll costs. Implementing some of the OJP recommendations, our national initiative trainings and meetings, which I have another one this evening, which were originally titled reconciliation meetings, and we've changed those to empathy and healing sessions. And we felt that was a better title. Body cameras, which as of yesterday, every precinct is now equipped with body cameras. The implementation of our early intervention system. We've had improvements in our operational intelligence, communication, and deployment, allowing us to improve our agility and quickly move resources to our problem areas. We've begun the initial planning for the 2018 Super Bowl. We have plans in place to expand PAL, our Police Activities League, certainly across the city. We had more emphasis in North Minneapolis and moved all throughout. Our RMS and PIMS, and then Hamilton Renovation, which was really a midterm solution as it's a leased facility. Let's see.
So,
I'm sorry, Chief.
Yeah.
Council Vice President Glidden had a question.
so I just had a question. Are you going to later in your presentation go through in more detail
Yep.
these items?
This is like a kind
Just
of a
the
preview,
overview.
high overview.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep. We're going to go through our core programs. And many don't have changes, so I'm going to kind of skim through those. And as you see the ones with changes and you have questions, obviously, please feel free to ask those. So our emergency response services, we've had no change, no ask. There's some reallocation, which you'll see in most of our core programs where we've just reallocated, so numbers may be adjusted due to that. Next. Let's go to public safety unless you have questions on emergency services.
Not seeing any. Please go ahead.
Okay. So no major changes, but certainly changes in allocations in public safety. The non-general funds, we were tailing off of a federal COPS grant, a reclassification of stadium buyback to emergency services. With the change of the $325,000 ongoing in the for the body cameras, and then when it comes to the data, we're not sure what we'll need. How much data requests we'll have. Certain issues we might have our quality control person to review the annotation. That's something we may need in the future. That's something that was brought up earlier by Councilmember Andrew Johnson at one point. I don't know if you have anything to add or questions on that.
Not seeing anything.
Okay. Next slide. This slide is meant.
Was it?
We can go back.
Yeah, we might. It was a lot to digest. That's.
Okay.
I think we were all looking at the same slide. Like, what are we talking about? Councilmember Bender had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you give us a bit more detail on the costs related to body camera storage?
Yeah.
Particularly those of us who aren't on the committee, I think, particularly could use more detail.
You want to run through?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Bender, a lot of the cost, the total cost of the program is $1.8 million, which we spent this year, and of that amount, we've spent